The conflict is arising because of Israel's insistence on striking oil facilities inside Iran.
This is one of the oil facilities of the country that has been targeted.
You can see the puff of cloud once those interceptors take out those missiles and rockets and drones.
Hezbollah rockets have reached this far into Israeli territory, and Israel consider this a serious escalation.
Lebanon's government is struggling to meet the demand for emergency shelter. This stadium has been converted into a mini tent city.
Stay with Al Jazeera for the latest developments.
Can you really bomb a political future into existence?
I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I think the objective here is to destroy the instruments of Iranian state power.
Let me ask you this directly. Is Israel effectively leading U.S. foreign policy?
They want to do a Gaza-like effort on the main power centers in Iran to kill thousands of people, not just the core.
Upfront tackles the big issues only on Al Jazeera.
Examining the impact of today's headlines, setting the agenda for tomorrow's discussions. International filmmakers and world-class journalists bring programs to inform and inspire you on Al Jazeera.
Hello, I'm Cyril Vanier. This is Al Jazeera with our continuing coverage of the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. Coming up this hour, rising threats over the Straits of Hormuz. Iran says that it will completely shut down this vital waterway if the U.S. attacks its power plants. And Iran says that if that happens, then essential facilities and U.S. economic interests in the region would be, quote, legitimate targets. Israel's prime minister pledges to destroy Iran after missile strikes injure more than 180 people. Israel blows up a bridge in southern Lebanon as it steps up its assault against Hezbollah. Escalating threats between Iran and the United States are raising fears of an even wider war in the Middle East. Tehran says any attack on its power plants will trigger immediate retaliation, including the full closure of the Strait of Hormuz, strikes on energy facilities and U.S.-linked interests.
सीने की जलन, तेजाबियत, बदहजमी, म्यूकेन. जब जलन हो सीने में, म्यूकेन ले पीने में. म्यूकेन by LCI.
I make sure हर काम परफेक्ट हो। भैया इधर रखो। हर चीज करे ग्लो, लेकिन मेरी स्किन का ग्लो, oh no। I use Palmolive Naturals, milky softness, rose petals का ग्लो, जिससे स्किन naturally glowing हो।
Hey Sarah, so soft. You're glowing.
Palmolive Naturals, glow जो notice हो।
Or I will blow up your power plants, starting with the biggest and most important one. Iran has responded, and it seems that they have no intention of doing what the U.S. president is asking of them. Can you walk us through the response that you have seen from Iran over the last few hours?
Well, Cyril, in the middle of this war, it seems that another war is going on, which is the war of rhetorics and narratives. And with President Trump raising the stake, the Iranians are responding with more confrontational rhetoric. And it's clear now that there is a unified position here, because we're hearing, after we heard from the armed forces, we heard from the Speaker of the Parliament, and now the Vice President, they're all on the same point. The moment the power plants in Iran are going to be hit, the whole region will go for a blackout. And more than that, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed, and it won't be open except these plants were rebuilt according to the armed forces. Now, with respect to the other authorities here in the country, like the vice president, he tried to defend Iran's position, saying that this is self-defense and that Iran is under the aggression, and that's why it will be self-defending itself by launching attacks against regional power plants and, of course, Israel. So this is the picture in general with respect to this point precisely. But what's clear here is that this whole conflict is going towards a dead end. There's no possibility for the moment to get down the ladder, at least from what we're hearing from both sides. Each side is taking, or at least is escalating their own rhetoric, and this could lead to what's really worse than the situation we are in currently.
And Ali, something that perhaps is noteworthy that happened today. We heard from the Iranian representative at the International Maritime Organization. His message was actually the Strait of Hormuz is not completely closed, and if foreign countries collaborate or work with us, we can get some of those ships through the strait.
Well, Cyril, this has been the case from the beginning. They've been talking to people, to companies, and there is a kind of a procedure that they are imposing. And they are saying clearly that only ships related to the United States and Israel and their allies aren't allowed to pass there. There were several conditions put on the table, but clearly the Iranians want to impose, at least to experience this leverage they have. They want to make use of it, exploit it, in order to create a new status quo, not only today in the middle of the war. We heard several Iranian officials, including the foreign minister, saying that post-war reality should be Iran should have its leverage still to allow people to get in and out of the Gulf.
Ali Hasham reporting from the Iranian capital, Tehran. Thank you very much, Ali. Let's bring in Teresa Bow. Teresa, you're in Washington, D.C. So the U.S. president, it seems, is changing his approach to how he's dealing with the Strait of Hormuz, how he is trying to reopen it. Can you walk us through that?
Well, what we've been seeing in the past few days is inconsistency in many ways of the tweets on the reference of the president on social media. On Friday, for example, he went on to say that he was not ready for a ceasefire. Later on, he said that he was ready to start winding down the situation. And then on Saturday, we saw this post on social media where he gave Iran an ultimatum, a 48-hour ultimatum, whether to open the Strait of Hormuz or that the whole power plants in the country would be obliterated. And those were his words. So certainly there's been a lot of discussion about why the president is acting this way. We've seen in the past few days also the president increasing pressure on the European Union to participate in opening up the Strait of Hormuz. The European Union has been extremely reluctant to participate in this, especially because this is a war that they did not start, that they did not endorse. They have been saying that this is not our war. And then on Thursday, we saw some member of the European Union and Japan saying that first there needs to be a de-escalation for them to start thinking how to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And obviously, this is something that the president does not like. He has went as far as to say that the future of NATO is at risk. So right now, all eyes are on what happens on the Strait of Hormuz. We're trying to see whether there's going to be some cooperations between the United States and the European Union. It's not clear just yet what is going to happen. But here in the United States, what everyone wants to know is when this war is going to be over. The price of gas has gone up $1 since this war started. The government is requesting extra money, $200 billion, to continue with this war. So the big question here right now is when this war is going to end and at what cost.
Teresa, brief us on the thousands of extra U.S. Marines that are currently being sent to the Gulf region in the Middle East.
Well, what we're hearing is, and what has been reported, is that an amphibious-ready group with 3 warships is heading to the Middle East. It has 2,500 Marines there. This would increase the number of Marines in the Middle East to 5,000, and the number of troops, U.S. troops, on the ground to 50,000. And these are members of the 11th Marines Expeditionary Units, whose specialty is on ground operations, on sea tactics. So many are speculating that they could be involved in some type of operations on Iran's shorelines. So let's not forget what's been happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has been laying mines there. They've been using small boats to attack those vessels who are not allies of the government there. So certainly the United States is trying to find strategies. We also heard a report from President Donald Trump saying, when he was asked whether this unit could participate in any type of operation on the Hajj Islands, he said that it's not clear whether something like that would happen, but he also said that in order to do that, you need massive force. And the crucial question here right now is one of the most difficult decisions for the Trump administration, and that is putting troops on the ground and boots on the ground. And when he was asked last week, Donald Trump said that that was not going to happen. But if it was going to happen, he was not going to be informing the press. So right now, all eyes are on what these Marines are going to be doing in the Middle East and what their task will be.
Teresa Bow reporting from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Teresa. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to continue targeting senior commanders of Iran's military. Netanyahu was visiting one of the towns hit by Iranian missiles on Saturday. More than 180 people were injured in Arad and Dimona. Victoria Gatenby has this report.
Significant damage can be seen across residential areas in Arad in southern Israel after an overnight Iranian ballistic missile strike that devastated an entire neighborhood. Rescue teams had to pull people from under the rubble, with the injured being taken to nearby hospitals. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the scene on Sunday with a defiant message. He said Israel will, quote, do everything to destroy Iran.
What we are doing is paving the way for the Iranian people to rid themselves of this tyrant regime. We are hitting the foundations of the regime. This is what we have to do. We hope we will create the atmosphere that will lead to the fall of the regime. We will ruin their nuclear and missile programs and their capability to manufacture ballistic missiles.
Israel's president and foreign minister also visited the scene and accused Iran of targeting civilians.
The Iranians do not differentiate between Muslims and Jews and Christians, or between elderly and young. All civilians are there to be killed and destroyed. But we are here to show something else, that we are ever resilient.
The attack on Arad came after a strike on another southern city, Dimona, the home of Israel's nuclear program. It was targeted by Iran in retaliation for an attack on its nuclear facilities earlier. Dimona was subjected to multiple air raid alerts throughout Saturday before one missile avoided interception and caused extensive damage. Weeks of missile and drone strikes have left many Israelis war-weary and emergency services at times overwhelmed.
We'll study what happened here and get better. We always want to be 100%, but even the best defense systems in the world are never 100%.
Police say in both cities those who took shelter when the sirens sounded were largely unharmed, and it was those who remained outside them who bore the brunt of the attack. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
Noor O'Day is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Noor, since the start of the war, you've explained to us that Israelis broadly support this war. Now that we're 3 weeks in and there's been this big attack with Iranian missile direct hits on multiple locations, more than 180 Israelis were injured. More than, I was looking at the number, it's in the hundreds. I believe it's in the thousands of Israelis who've been taken to hospital and have been injured since the beginning of this war. How do Israelis feel about this?
Well, they're tired and frustrated at this point, Sarah. We saw a video from earlier today with the Minister of Internal Security, the controversial Itamar Ben-Gvir, visiting one of those sites and being basically kicked out by a screaming resident who said, all of this destruction is your doing. Look, the support continues, but again, Dimona and Arad, you have more than 1,000 people who now need to be housed by the government, because so many buildings were destroyed and are not usable at this point. You have more than 10,000 claims for compensation, and there seems to be no letting up, because the Israeli officials continue to say this is going to take as long as it takes. The sirens keep going off, which means, Sarah, that if you're lucky enough as an Israeli to have a public shelter or a safe room nearby, you must basically live your life around it, if not inside it. If you live in the northern communities where you don't get advanced warning, then it is absolutely nerve-wracking, because you have seconds between the siren and impact. And if you are a Palestinian Israeli citizen, well, you hear the sirens, but it's more of a cruel joke, because you do not have those protections for the most part. So it is taking its toll, but still, for now at least, the support continues for the troops. The confidence in Netanyahu, not so much.
And the number that eluded me a moment ago is almost 4,600 Israelis have been taken to hospital for injuries since the beginning of this war. Noor, what's happening in the country today?
Yeah. Well, look, in addition to the sirens, in addition to the Iranian missiles, and to the war front with Hezbollah in the north, we've heard a lot from Israeli officials. The Israeli prime minister is promising death and destruction in Iran. He says that without destroying this government and this government system in Iran, nobody is safe. He even adopted the narrative of Donald Trump by saying that the U.S. and Israel are fighting this war on behalf of the world, and so world leaders should join in. In Hebrew, the messages have also been about asking for patience, but promising fury, if you will, promising a lot of firepower against the enemies, not just in Iran, but also in Lebanon. We heard from the hawkish Minister of Defense, who has said that, Iran will be destroyed, but who's also instructed the military to destroy Lebanese villages on the border side, the front line, if you will. And in his words, this will be in accordance with the model of Beit Hanun and Rafah in Gaza. And we know exactly what that looks like, Sarah. Our audience do as well. Rafah and Beit Hanun were obliterated over the past 2.5 years. So this is basically what awaits in the coming weeks and months, because the war front with Hezbollah, according to these officials, will take possibly until the summer.
Noor O'Day reporting from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Thank you very much. As Noor mentioned, Israel is waging a war on another front, and that's Lebanon. In recent hours, Israeli airstrikes on the south of the country have killed at least 4 people. Israel is also trying to destroy transportation links between the north and the south. Look at this.